Border Patrol officer vanished in 1995. 9 later years. Homeland Security finds this. They say the desert doesn't forgive. June 17, 1995. Rachel Prescott, a young Border Patrol agent on routine solo patrol in Sector J, just south of the Rio Grande, vanished without trace. 11 years later, in the scorched wash of Sector D12, after a summer monsoon, her abandoned SUV emerges, half-buried, its tires caked with silt, its doors pried ajar by time itself. That's where this begins, a rusted vehicle lost to memory, now dredged into the open, dragging secrets, buried deeper than the desert sand. South Texas-Mexico border spring, midday heat. The wash runs dry most of the year, whispering winds, rattlesnakes, rattling mesquite. Border towns cling to faded trailer parks and highway diners serving burnt coffee. You can feel the cottonwood trees lean away from the sun, tired of shade. It's the kind of place where old-timers warn newcomers, watch your back, and even your own echo. Rachel Prescott, 24. Fresh out of training, assigned to Sector J near Loma Alta. Runner of silent night sweeps, cigarette smoking, code-obsessed, just another green agent watching lines in the sand. Except she never came back on June 17th. Her last radio check-in at 1842, logged from Culvert 73 south of Checkpoint Charlie, the old ranch crossing. Then nothing. Her family later received a letter. We presume she abandoned her vehicle crossing illegally, status, AWOL, case closed. No search efforts, no condolences, no press release, just silence. Her name lost in the shuffle. Now, 2006, DHS Airwatch 27 pilot Tom Herron presses the cyclic banks low over D12. A flash of metal, a Chevy Suburban hood down into the scrub, hidden until erosion exposes it. A unit reading 4207 matching Preston Prescott's issue SUV, lost in 95. Agent Dana Reich, now a DOJ investigator assigned to internal affairs, gets called. She's seen more dust storms than evidence. She steps across orange crime tape and begins to catalog dried blood in the rear cargo. Battered gun still in the glove box, 40. SNW serial intact, magazine missing 3. A spiral notebook titled Prescott R. Pages yellowed ink, faded mid-June. Radio mic cracked and corroded. Dana stands beside a young tech, silent, except for flashes of camera shutters. No scavengers, no coyotes, just dust and dust. Superintendent Len Brewer, wearing a weathered campaign hat, offers the cursory nod. Surprised you're here, investigator. This could stir things, but we were told there was no foul play. She was AWOL. Dana replies quietly, her radio was cut, gun drawn, blood. Someone buried all this. Brewer exhales. Maybe she fled. Maybe. A hailstorm washed the vehicle off-grid. He won't volunteer theory. Dana's gut says something darker took root decades ago. Dana pulls the microfiche folder, a stack of 3 thin sheets. Confirmation Prescott was last seen patrolling Sector J June 17, 1995. She heads to Archive Vault in Laredo, 1995 radio log. Coincidence. She requests tape serials, holds them in hand. One sequence Q3 1995 reads unreadable heat damage. She underlines it, all Sector J coverage erased. She sits in rental car. Maps, logs, notebook. She tattoos timestamps 1842 to disappearance. Gaps she can't fill unless someone speaks up. She discovers a misfiled handwritten note from June 4th in 1995, 2 weeks before the disappearance. Saw BP SUV slow roll west fence at 8:30, black Tahoe behind it, followed after SUV passed. Signed H. Galvin Ranch, 43. No follow-up remark in official report. Dana senses a whisper someone may have seen the SUV, not alone. Someone reported an escort vehicle, but censored. A small leak in a dam designed to never leak. Why was Prescott rerouted south? Why no backup call? Why was her equipment destroyed, gaslighted as missing? Why write that she was AWOL? What did she uncover? Dana sips stale coffee in the evidence room. Maps of Culvert 73 that wash the route. heat-fried log tapes, a notebook full of half-faded notes and corroded gun. She places her hand on the Jeep's hood. This isn't abandonment. This was planned. She whispers Rachel Prescott didn't walk away. Someone buried her and lived with it. 2 days later, Dana drove through sun-bleached country roads to Ranch 43. Hector Galvin's place sat beyond the old Santa Vega line, just a splintered fence, a rusted mailbox, and silence. He was already on the porch, hat in hand, like he'd been waiting since '95. "You're the first law to come out here in over a decade," he said, motioning her to a chair. "I said what I saw back then, but no one wanted to hear it." "What did you see June 17th? "I was out checking the fence line, mile marker 41. Dusk. Saw a green BP rig creeping south. It was Prescott's. Same make, same rack. 20 minutes earlier, a black SUV had pulled off by my irrigation trailer. No plates, windows tinted darker than sin. Sat there till she passed, then followed. You report it," told a supervisor. "Name slips me. Calvin Sanders." Galvin's face hardened. "That's him. Didn't write nothin'. Just said thanks and walked off. Never heard back." That night, Dana returned to the Laredo evidence vault. The Border Patrol firearm log from June '95 showed Prescott's .40 caliber was marked temporary retention. No test firing, no serial trace. 4 years later, it was labeled destroyed standard clearance. She dug deeper. Behind a misfiled stack of travel logs, she found a complaint sheet unsigned, but dated 2 weeks before Rachel vanished. It described unrecorded detainments at a decommissioned tower south of Sector J. No paperwork, no radio logs. It ended with, "I'll follow up in person if not addressed." Dana pulled a copy of Prescott's incident notebook. The handwriting matched. She contacted Leo Carnes, a quiet forensic tech who owed her a favor. "You worked audio logs back in '06, right?" "Yeah." "What about 1995 tapes?" He frowned. "That's the quarter we lost from J and K sectors. Compressor blew, no backups." She looked at him. Rachel's file was reassigned, archived wrong. 2 vehicles had their maintenance records scrubbed. "I was still an intern, but I noticed. You ever speak up once. Got assigned to inventory audits for 3 years. Dana didn't flinch. "Thanks." Next came Sanders. She didn't confront him outright. She followed him for 2 days after his shift at the Icefield office in Yuma. He kept to routine straight roads, fast food, a quiet drive home. On day 3, he broke pattern. At dusk, he pulled into a warehouse lot. Dana parked out of sight, angled her mic toward his SUV. Another car arrived. Out stepped Superintendent Brewer. Through the static, she caught snatches. "You said that sector was clear. She wasn't supposed to surface. If they push this, clean it up, like before." Dana's jaw clenched. She clicked off the mic. At midnight, Sanders drove to a fenced clearing by an old water station, Relay 9. Dana watched from a ridge as he heaved a gray plastic bin toward a narrow runoff shaft. He shoved it in. It hesitated, then dropped. By morning, Dana stood with a Yuma County deputy and 2 technicians. The bin was pulled. Inside scorched shift sheets, a map, a half-melted nameplate. One name circled twice in red, Prescott R. She bagged the sheet herself. Later that day, at a regional substation, a young agent named Eli Vargas handed her a small cassette tape. "Found it in my locker this morning, no note. Think someone wants it heard. Old deck, worn playhead." Tape clicked in. Rachel's voice. "I'm not covering this." Pause. Static. "I'll file it myself." Then a second voicemail, low. "You need to think about what you're doing. I already have." Cut. Dana ejected it, slid it into an evidence bag, and wrote Prescott in block ink. She met Eli outside Sierra Blanca. "I need you to watch a comm tower. Relay 9, movement log. Just plates, no contact. Got it." They met at dusk. The tower was rusted, its hinges moaning in the wind. The sand showed recent prints someone had been through. Inside, behind a rusted panel, she found a DHS evidence pouch. Inside, a tarnished badge. Cracked. Number still visible. 7391 Jonah Avery. Dana felt the air leave her lungs. Avery had been listed drowned near Falcon Lake in 1994. No autopsy. Just a note vehicle found body unrecovered. But the badge matched. Avery had filed a misconduct complaint 3 weeks before he vanished. Same phrasing Rachel used. Dana returned to her motel. Pinned across the wall, Rachel Prescott 1995 presumed AWOL. Jonah Avery 1994 presumed drowned. Lucille Reiner 1996 internal resignation. Paul Diaz 1993 terminated for noncompliance. All had filed reports. All vanished within a corridor known for smuggling. She circled each with a red pen. No follow-up. No body. No inquiry. The tower, the hidden cells, the badge. This wasn't 4 coincidences. It was a system. Next, she walked into a press event where Brewer was shaking hands. She didn't wait for the mic. Just stepped beside him. "How many did you bury?" she asked quietly. He smiled thinly. "Excuse me, Avery. Prescott. Diaz. Their names are still on inactive rolls. No death certs. Just dust." "Be careful," he said. "Accusations have weight. They're not accusations, they're patterns." She walked away, the cameras still flashing. The door at the Santa Cruz County substation shut behind them with a soft click. Inside the interview room, no mirror, no cameras, just a recorder, and 4 walls stained by the weight of old confessions. Calvin Sanders sat hunched forward, knuckles white, breath shallow. Dana placed Rachel Prescott's cracked wristwatch in front of him. 196, she said. He looked up, eyes wet. "You found her. She deserved the truth. Now I want it too. All of it." He didn't speak for a long moment, then finally muttered, "You sure you're ready for this?" "I wouldn't be here if I wasn't." It wasn't supposed to be her. Sanders started. Rachel wasn't scheduled for Sector J that night. Brewer reassigned her. No notice. Told dispatch she was filling in. Dana's brow furrowed. Why that sector? Because of Relay 9, that place was dark off the logs. Used for detainments that never went through the system. Some came through legally, some didn't. Brewer said we were intercepting high-value threats, but none of us saw charges, no transfers, just disappearances. Dana leaned forward. What did Rachel find? She called me. Said she heard voices inside, movement, wanted backup before filing anything. I told her to hold. Then I called Brewer. He got there fast. Too fast. He swallowed. She was standing outside her rig when we pulled up. Mad. Said she found 2 kids locked in a cell built into the concrete foundation. No tags, no paperwork. She told Brewer she was filing it. Said she'd go to DOJ if we didn't. He tried to talk her down. Said she didn't understand the scope. What did he mean? He meant this was bigger than smuggling, bigger than DHS. He warned her it'd pull her whole family in if she didn't let go. Dana's voice dropped, but she didn't. Sanders shook his head. Said she wasn't afraid of the fallout. Turned to get in her rig. That's when I left. I couldn't stay. My stomach was... Did you hear the shot I did? Sharp, close, echoed through the wash. They sat in silence until Sanders slid a paper across the table. A list of names, Avery Reiner Diaz, and 2 others, Nathan Cordry, DHS Logistics, and Jacob Hanley, a sheriff's deputy. They were part of it. Paperwork movers, escorts. They kept things quiet. What about the cartels they paid to stay out of it? This wasn't about drugs. It was about people. The confession triggered movement. Within 24 hours, DOJ officials sanctioned a quiet operation. 1 team, no press, no leaks. Dana led the task force. Their target, Brewer, and his last known coordination point, Relay 218. They moved before sundown. Rob Tyron from the Marshals Service met her behind a gas station off Highway 90. 2 agents, Monroe and Wolf, arrived in separate vehicles, dressed like surveyors. Dana handed Tieran the final text from Sanders' old papers need moving before audit. Usual place, no delays. At 9:44 p.m., a dust-covered SUV arrived. Brewer stepped out in a windbreaker and ball cap alone. 2 minutes later, a second vehicle, a tan sedan with covered plates, pulled up. Out came a courier duffel in hand. From behind a ridge, Monroe picked up fragments. Audit's not clean. Burn the cruiser. Do it like before. Dana didn't wait. Move, she ordered. Tieran flanked the West Wolf, swept in from the south. Dana emerged, weapon drawn, but low. The courier bolted, tossing the duffel. Wolf tackled him hard. Sand flew, cuffs clicked. Brewer didn't resist. You made it further than most, he muttered. You left a trail, Dana replied, and now it's over. Inside the duffel logs from 1993, 1996, intake rosters, VHS footage labeled Relay 9, a half-melted badge, undeveloped film, slips of paper with drop amounts, some initialed by Brewer himself. The case blew wide open. DOJ filed charges within 48 hours, conspiracy, murder, obstruction, falsification of federal records. Brewer was denied bail. The courier flipped, exposing names, deputies, techs, middlemen, from logistics to border contractors. Sanders' testimony sealed it. He got 30 years eligible in 20, Brewer life, no parole. Rachel Prescott was buried in a modest private plot north of Amarillo. No media, no honor guard. Just her brother Eric Dana, and a silence that spoke louder than any sermon. Eric said little, just placed his hand on the coffin and whispered, "You didn't run. You stood your ground." Dana stayed behind long after the others had left, watching the wind move through the mesquite. Justice long overdue had finally touched that dry Texas soil. The press never got the full picture, not officially. DOJ kept the scope tight, citing national security clauses and internal integrity reviews. The trial was sealed except for final sentencing. Public records said Brewer was convicted of conspiracy and the death of a federal officer, but they didn't mention Relay 9, or the field recordings, or the system that had swallowed at least 4 good agents over 3 years. Dana knew the details would never see a proper hearing, but that wasn't the goal anymore. The truth, even in pieces, had been pulled from the dust. She returned to El Paso a week after sentencing, packed her government laptop into a plain cardboard box, and turned in her badge. Her rotation was over. No ceremony, no plaque. But as she passed the front desk, a younger agent, barely 25, nodded at her in recognition. Quiet, respectful. Some things lingered. 3 weeks passed. Dana spent the days driving south through Marfa, then into the scrublands between Alpine and Langtree. Remote country, the kind of place Rachel once patrolled without backup, without question. But then came the package. No return address. Just a strip of brown tape and a postmark from Laredo. Inside a VHS tape labeled Relay 51195 and 4 photographs. One photo stopped her cold. Rachel in uniform standing beside the base of Relay 9, her expression unreadable. Behind her 3 men, none looking at the camera. 2 wore nondescript tactical pants. 1 had a Border Patrol windbreaker, but the patch was wrong. The shape was close, but the font off. Too squared. The seal placement slightly skewed. Dana ran facial recognition through the DOJ archive. Nothing. No match. Someone had manufactured appearance. A fake uniform meant to disarm from a distance. Just enough to pass. She flipped the VHS over. The handwriting was the same as the courier logs from the duffel bag. Sharp-angled all caps. She didn't need a TV to know what the footage would show. By April, Dana's motel had turned into a war room again. She taped printed screenshots to the wall, built a new timeline. She circled grid references, reviewed signal logs from the summer of '95, and sent encrypted drops to 2 of her former DOJ colleagues. One wrote back, "You've still got eyes watching. Proceed careful." That same day, someone torched her rental car. The fire was clean. Accelerant beneath the dash, ignition timed. The station report was minimal, but the local captain pulled her aside after reading her name. "You're the one who nailed Brewer?" he asked. Dana nodded. He shook his head. "We've had feds roll through here for years, but nobody's ever hit bone like that. Just don't let them find you with your back turned." She didn't reply. Just signed the release form and asked for another vehicle. That night she drove north to Sierra Blanca. There was a tower there, Relay 6, built before the 1990s reforms. It had been marked inactive since 1997. Locals, though, still called it La Sombra, the shadow. She parked behind the ridge and waited until moonrise. Inside it was mostly empty, dust on every surface except the floor behind the breaker panel. There, under a loose steel plate, she found a sealed DHS evidence pouch, marked with a barcode so faded it looked like dust. Inside another badge, number 7391, name Jonah Avery. Dana's hands shook. Avery had disappeared a year before Rachel, presumed drowned, no autopsy, no follow-up. But his last known complaint misconduct near Sector J used the same language Rachel had. Off-route transports, no chain of custody. Another ghost from the same corridor. She spread the names across her motel bed: Rachel Prescott, Jonah Avery, Lucille Reiner, Paul Diaz, all logged as AWOL. All had filed misconduct flags. All vanished between 1993 and 1996. She ran them against internal HR notes. Each one had their shift logs altered post-disappearance, their retirement benefits untouched, their final shift routes misfiled or destroyed. They weren't just lost, they were erased. Dana wrote a new summary, cross-linked the badge numbers, and sent a third encrypted drop. This time to someone she'd never worked with directly: R.J. Manning, a federal investigator known for rooting out internal rot. She included one sentence: "How many agents have to vanish before we admit it was never a mistake?" Manning called her 3 days later. "This thing you're chasing," he said, voice flat. It was known. Not sanctioned, but tolerated. Dana didn't flinch. "I want a task force. You've got one. No press. Limited scope. But your badge carries it forward. And Brewer, he's already been moved. Cell Block 11, Laredo. Off-record placement." Dana paused. "You think he'll talk? He doesn't have to. The records you've gathered already broke the dam. We're moving on procurement audits next. Contractor screening." And a name came up: Hanley. Sheriff's deputy still active. He moved people off books. We know. He's flagged now. Dana exhaled. "Then it starts here." No, Riddick Manning replied. "It started years ago. You just lit the match." That night Dana stood on the motel balcony. The desert was still, the kind of silence you only get in places the system forgot. She turned the badge in her hand, Rachel's its edges, worn smooth by time. Justice had been slow, but it was moving now, and she would keep walking it forward. Dana woke early. Desert light seeped under the curtains. The badge, Rachel Prescott's, lay on the nightstand. It felt heavier than ever. She gathered her notes: the 4 erased agents, relay towers, incinerated logs, and corrupted chain of command. This was no single crime. It was a pattern, a system. Her burner phone pinged. A message from R.J. Manning: Hanley interview today. 1400 HR's location, Valverde Station. Bring only badge, no press. Dana nodded to herself. Next stop, Valverde County Sheriff's Station. By midday she drove into the dusty parking lot. Sheriff Deputy Jacob Hanley waited outside, wearing plain clothes, a dark baseball cap pulled low. He looked older than his badge said. Lines around his eyes told of hard nights and hidden guilt. They sat in a small interview room. Dana slid across a file labeled Valverde Logistics. Inside maps, timestamps, and jet scan manifests from 1994 to 1996. "Thanks for coming," Dana said quietly. Hanley shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not proud, but I'll tell you what I know." He placed 2 sheets on the table, one listing unmarked vans, another Noting ghost manifests no cargo, no fingerprints, no paper trails. These ran from Sierra Blanca into Sector J, mostly at night. They picked up people, sometimes boxes. They dropped them at Relay 9 or near old water towers. Brewer was in on it. He made sure records were clean. Dana tapped holes in the map. These vans, these routes, your truck escorts. Hanley nodded. I did it. For money. Thought it was legit payouts. DHS contract work. Until I saw bodies at Relay 6. Not killed by cartel. No wounds, no signs. They were discarded. Dana studied him, a middle-aged man, haunted by what he'd helped hide. Did you report it? Hanley shook his head. Beaten by Brewer. He told me they were internal operations, national security. He said I'd go down if I said anything too much. Rachel tried to file. She never made it past Relay 9. Dana closed her eyes. Thank you. This is enough to indict. 2 weeks later, court filings began. Hanley took the stand. He spoke calmly, but with pain. The secrecy, the night convoys, the hidden graves, the dead agents. The jury listened. Dana sat in the gallery, the badge in her hand, hope in her heart. The prosecution laid it out. Brewer's conspiracy, Sanders' facilitations, Hanley's logistics support. The missing agents were not accidents, they were silent threats. In cross-examination, defense tried to distance Brewer operational necessity. Who questioned it then? Asked Hanley. Why were reports suppressed? Members of Congress watched from the left gallery. DHS secretary subpoenaed. No stone left unturned. Inside Valverde County Courthouse lobby, Hanley emerged surrounded by cameras. For once he didn't flinch. He walked past Dana. Their eyes met, shared relief. Dana realized rescue doesn't always come in loud headlines. Sometimes through quiet testimony in dim rooms. The judge read sentencing guidelines. Brewer life without parole. Sanders 30 years. Hanley reduced sentence with time served and cooperation. DOJ agents seized remaining records, unmarked vans and chains of command logs. And most importantly, an official apology to the families of the 4 missing agents. The DOJ upgraded their status, presumed killed in line of duty. Full benefits granted, names etched on federal memorials. Months later, Dana returned to Sierra Blanca. Relay 6 and 9 towers dismantled. Rangers marking memorial plaques. A quiet desert monument in memory of Prescott Avery Reiner Diaz. She stood before it, badge pinned to her jacket. She touched the plaque. Your names live, she whispered. Your service wasn't erased. A breeze stirred dust around her boots. In El Paso, Rachel Prescott's watch now ticks again. The coroner's office returned it to her family. Eric Prescott held it to his chest. Dana stood nearby as he quietly said, she came home. They didn't need more. Late one night, Dana sat back at her motel, packing her final evidence bag. A USB drive, court transcripts, manifest lists. Hanley interview badge scans, enough to hold the system accountable. She texted R.J. Manning drop at Secure Archive. I'm done. He replied immediately, good work, system changed. Dana exhaled. She placed the final piece in the folder marked closed. She switched off the light. Before dawn, she drove toward a quiet canyon off the Panhandle. She slowed, parked. Dawn painted sandstone peaks a soft orange. Border Patrol cruisers passed on the highway. Young agents smiling alert. She watched them from her rearview mirror. She nodded. They're next. They carry a cleaner system now. Dana started the car and drove away. No badge, no fanfare, just a woman who refused to bury truth in silence and left a scar on the desert for all to remember. Sunlight broke over the jagged horizon as Dana steered her car toward the secure DOJ Archive Center. The wind-whipped landscape of West Texas lay flat and relentless, a fitting backdrop for what lay ahead. Inside the unmarked facility, she walked down stark hallways to Archive Room C. A vault-like door sealed behind her. She touched the folder, marked Operation Hidden Watch, classified records. The door clicked shut. The only light came from a single overhead bulb, harsh white, revealing no secrets. She placed the USB drive onto the table. A vault clerk approached, verifying credentials. No questions asked. She exhaled in relief. The folders, tapes, and evidence she collected now secured in official archives. Enough to sustain oversight committees, congressional inquiries, and legal reviews for years. Enough to prevent another Rachel Prescott. A week later in Washington, D.C. Capitol steps, outside a Senate Judiciary hearing room, a small crowd gathered, reporters, civil rights advocates, and families of the missing agents. Dana stepped to the witness table under brilliant lights. Behind her, images of Prescott, Avery, Reiner, Diaz displayed on screens. She spoke clearly. My colleagues disappeared in the line of duty. Their files were destroyed, their deaths covered up. I stand before you to ensure their names are restored, their integrity honored, and measures taken so this never happens again. She laid out reforms, mandatory patrol check-ins, digital chain of custody tracking, independent DHS oversight board, whistleblower protections, and criminal penalties for evidence tampering. Senators nodded as she spoke. Murmurs filled the room. Her badge, once a worn relic, shone under the hearing lights. Back in Laredo, detectives closed cold cases. Baxter of the FBI reviewed migration officer logs. State troopers worked to dismantle remaining smuggling networks, intertwined with official border systems. Hanley continued aiding prosecutions. He started mentoring new deputies on ethics. He volunteered weekly at a local shelter, making small amends for his past collusion. Sanders, from his federal penitentiary cell, wrote letters of remorse to families. He took early steps, hoping for parole someday. He authored policy papers on accountability. In Amarillo, Eric Prescott adjusted a photo of Rachel at home, her in uniform, smiling. He watched Daniel, his grandson, play in the yard. Dana knocked. Inside, she found Eric, standing alone. She wanted this fixed, he said quietly. Your work brought her home. They embraced. A long silence followed, a father and a mother's advocate standing together. In the desert, the memorial plaque stands under the scorching sun. Rangers erected a second marker. Truth does not fade in time. Dana attended the dedication ceremony. She pinned a small rose at the base. Local agents stood solemnly. A young rookie leaned forward. I'll remember, he said. We all will. Dana nodded, voice steady. That's why I did it. Months later, Dana walked past a new Border Patrol station, opening on the same stretch where Patrol Unit 4207 had gone missing. A ribbon-cutting ceremony, officials, community leaders, cameras. She lingered at the edge. A young agent looked her way. Thank you for not giving up, the agent said. Dana forced a smile. Just doing my job. She turned and walked away. In her quiet apartment, she dropped a fresh plant on her windowsill, a cactus. Resilient, enduring. On the coffee table, the badge, the watch, the files, all together. She poured a glass of water, sat back looking at the desert sun through the window. Justice had been served. Silence shattered. Truth remained. Dana whispered to herself, mission complete. And in the distance, the desert wind carried a single truth across miles of parched earth we remember. System changed. Dana exhaled. She placed the final piece in the folder marked closed. She switched off the light. Before dawn, she drove toward a quiet canyon off the Panhandle. She slowed, parked. Dawn painted sandstone peaks a soft orange. Border Patrol cruisers passed on the highway. Young agents smiling, alert. She watched them from her rearview mirror. She nodded. They're next. They carry a cleaner system now. Dana started the car and drove away, no badge, no fanfare. Just a woman who refused to bury truth in silence and left a scar on the desert for all to remember. Sunlight broke over the jagged horizon as Dana steered her car toward the secure DOJ Archive Center. The wind-whipped landscape of West Texas lay flat and relentless, a fitting backdrop for what lay ahead. Inside the unmarked facility, she walked down stark hallways to Archive Room C, a vault-like door sealed behind her. She touched the folder marked Operation Hidden Watch, Classified Records. The door clicked shut. The only light came from a single overhead bulb, harsh white, revealing no secrets. She placed the USB drive onto the table. A vault clerk approached, verifying credentials. No questions asked. She exhaled in relief. The folders, tapes, and evidence she collected now secured in official archives. Enough to sustain oversight committees, congressional inquiries, and legal reviews for years. Enough to prevent another Rachel Prescott. A week later in Washington, D.C. Capitol, steps outside a Senate Judiciary hearing room. A small crowd gathered, reporters, civil rights advocates, and families of the missing agents. Dana stepped to the witness table under brilliant lights. Behind her, images of Prescott, Avery, Reiner Diaz displayed on screens. She spoke clearly. My colleagues disappeared in the line of duty. Their files were destroyed, their deaths covered up. I stand before you to ensure their names are restored, their integrity honored, and measures taken so this never happens again. She laid out reforms, mandatory patrol check-ins, digital chain of custody tracking, independent DHS oversight board, whistleblower protections, and criminal penalties for evidence tampering. Senators nodded as she spoke. Murmurs filled the room. Her badge, once a worn relic, shone under the hearing lights. Back in Laredo, detectives closed cold cases. Baxter of the FBI reviewed migration officer logs. State troopers worked to dismantle remaining smuggling networks intertwined with official border systems. Hanley continued aiding prosecutions. He started mentoring new deputies on ethics. He volunteered weekly at a local shelter, making small amends for his past collusion. Sanders, from his federal penitentiary cell, wrote letters of remorse to families. He took early steps, hoping for parole someday. He authored policy papers on accountability. In Amarillo, Eric Prescott adjusted a photo of Rachel at home, her in uniform, smiling. He watched Daniel, his grandson, play in the yard. Dana knocked. Inside, she found Eric, standing alone. She wanted this fixed, he said quietly. Your work brought her home. They embraced. A long silence followed, a father and a mother's advocate standing together. In the desert, the memorial plaque stands under the scorching sun. Rangers erected a second marker. Truth does not fade in time. Dana attended the dedication ceremony. She pinned a small rose at the base. Local agents stood solemnly. A young rookie leaned forward. I'll remember, he said. We all will. Dana nodded, voice steady. That's why I did it. Months later, Dana walked past a new Border Patrol station opening on the same stretch where Patrol Unit 4207 had gone missing. A ribbon-cutting ceremony, officials, community leaders, cameras. She lingered at the edge. A young agent looked her way. Thank you for not giving up, the agent said. Dana forced a smile. Just doing my job. She turned and walked away. In her quiet apartment, she dropped a fresh plant on her windowsill, a cactus. Resilient, enduring. On the coffee table, the badge, the watch, the files, all together. She poured a glass of water, sat back, looking at the desert sun through the window. Justice had been served. Silence shattered. Truth remained. Dana whispered to herself, mission complete. And in the distance, the desert wind carried a single truth across miles of parched earth we remember. Thank you for not giving up, the agent said. Dana forced a smile. Just doing my job. She turned and walked away. In her quiet apartment, she dropped a fresh plant on her windowsill, a cactus. Resilient, enduring. On the coffee table, the badge, the watch, the files, all together. She poured a glass of water, sat back, looking at the desert sun through the window. Justice had been served. Silence shattered. Truth remained. Dana whispered to herself, mission complete. And in the distance, the desert wind carried a single truth across miles of parched earth we remember.